Hey folks, this is Kalani. For anyone who's been paying attention to BlizzCon, we know we've got a huge amount of content in the pipeline. I'm super stoked to get my hands on Nighthold and whatever changes come with that, but we just had another 2 patch loads of information dumped on us. This might end up being the most content-dense expansion we've ever had, so let's have a look at what Blizzard has in store for us. They keep using the same phrase, steady stream of content, and they certainly seem to have a plan. One of the focuses they're working on is breathing life back into the world as a whole, to feel like this game is a living world, for us to log on and have a few surprises waiting for us, so we don't know exactly how that day in Azeroth is going to unfold. To that end, we'll likely see more medium-sized patches, more patches like 7.1, instead of huge raid patches. The first of these smaller patches is going to be 7.1.5. Most of these in-between patches will focus on system updates, new rewards, and introducing content that always stays relevant. Another thing about these patches is that if something isn't quite finished, it will be put on the back burner and introduced with a later patch, instead of delaying the entire patch until it's ready to go. The rest of the patch that is finished will go out ASAP. That means we should see content whether rain or shine, which is always nice to hear. So the first piece of content we're getting goes into that always stays relevant section. Mists of Pandaria timewalking. We'll get another weekly event to head back into the Temple of Jade Serpent, Stormstout Brewery, Shadowpan Monastery, Gate of the Setting Sun, Mogushan Palace, and the Siege of Nizhao Temple. Apparently timewalking is going to remain at the current expansion -2, so we might see Warlord's Dungeons added to it when we get to the next expansion. A new expansion worth of time walking obviously means a new vendor with new toys, new gear, and all that good stuff. We're also getting the Brawlers Guild back. The renovations were hopefully worth it. We're getting dozens of new bosses. Dozens was stressed quite a bit, which is going to be awesome. The devs have been coming up with anything crazy they would love to put in a fight and just throwing it into the Brawlers Guild. No rules and no law implications means they can pretty much do whatever they want. There's also going to be a new type of brawl, rumbles. There's a chance when people are queuing up for everybody currently in the waiting list to be dragged into the arena to face off against a raid level boss with additional rewards. A new currency will also be introduced to let you unlock temporary vendors or unlock a graveyard right by the arena for a limited time. One of the vendors can let you gamble on the current brawlers and win even more rewards. Those unlocks will be available for everybody in the Brawlers Guild, meaning it's always nice to have more people around. New rewards include a whole bunch of shirts, more shirts, and probably even more shirts, as well as a new basilisk mount. Blizzard is also introducing micro holidays. They're going to play out like holidays, but only be active for a day or two, much like the Day of the Dead event. These new events will tie into building a living world. The examples we were given include the Anchorage Remembrance Day, where the Alliance and Horde will compete as they did back in the day, collecting and turning in items to unlock the gates of Anchorage. This time they'll be competing on a regional level, and the winning faction gets to fly their banners above Anchorage for the rest of the year until this micro holiday comes around again and the losing team will get another shot. There's also the Volunteer Guard Day for a day event, allowing you to take on the appearance and job of one of the city guards, patrol the city and keep it safe from pests and villains alike. We also have the hatchling of the hippogriffs. Once a year in Feralast, the hippogriff eggs hatch en masse, and if you're lucky enough to be there on the day, you can see it for yourself. You can also obtain one of the little hatchlings as a little pet. It's not a combat pet, it's more like Pepe. Then we have Boat Day, because everybody needs to take a day off once in a while. Head over to the flooded Thousand Needles and just chillax for a while. There's going to be a bunch of these added over time to keep the world interesting and feel alive, and I'm excited to see how it all pans out. PvPers are getting some love as well in 7.1.5, with Blade's Edge Arena getting a facelift. It's got a new lick of paint to bring it into 2016, and it comes with its very own shoutcaster. There's an Ogre Overseer, which will watch over all of the arena fights and will comment on the wins and fails of each team. If the Ogre is well received, we may get similar additions elsewhere in the game. 7.1.5 is also going to be the first large class update patch where talents will be played around with. The goal is for talent diversity to be a bit better. Some of the required talents right now may get reworked or retuned, talents which aren't used at all will be replaced or retuned, and anything which feels like it should be baseline might just well be made baseline. The ideal scenario they're aiming for is for each talent to be viable in its own way. We'll also see balancing attempts focused on secondary stats to bring them more in line for every class. An item level upgrade without your perfect stats should still be interesting, and right now that's not the case. There's also mechanical improvements planned to smooth out any bumps in clunky rotations or conflicting abilities and talents to improve how classes feel while playing. We will also see the return of some class utility. They admit they may have gone a bit too far with some of the pruning, and will get back some of those abilities or new abilities to replace them. Examples we were given were all hunters getting their traps back, while survival maintains their Master of Traps title, and rogues once again being able to AoE stealth. Now, as with every patch, we'll also get a bunch of bug fixes and little bits and bobs here and there. As for a timeline, 7.1.5 will hit the PTR servers right after BlizzCon, so probably on Tuesday. I would expect, or at least maybe before Nighthold launches. Usually class changes would happen before a raid patch and not during the raid progression, but we'll see what happens. Either way, we have a new raid nicely lined up with all the awesome content of 7.1.5, so I don't think we'll be complaining about lack of things to do anytime soon. As if all that info wasn't enough, we also know how our next big patch, 7.2, is going to pan out. This one is going to be our next raid patch, with the raid being the Tomb of Sargeras. So we already know what our next raid is going to be after the raid we're currently waiting for. Seems like they might have this steady content thing nailed. With the tomb being opened, we'll return to the Broken Shore, and with our new powerful toys push back against the forces which destroyed the Alliance and Horde at the start of the expansion. This time the class Order Hordes will band together to form the armies of Legionfall, which is a new faction you can earn reputation with. You will lead your class hall as its Archmage or its Huntsmaster or whatever your class happens to be, and continue the class Order campaign with all new rewards throughout. There will also be new world quests, both at the Broken Shore and in the zones of the Broken Isles. Some of these will be class specific and class focused. Now, the Broken Shore will revolve around establishing and building up a foothold base and progressing from there. The biggest difference between this time around and us previously building up a base is that we get to choose what we unlock first and at what pace. We'll be building up ancient elven ruins, and we control what gets built and worked on first. Depending on what gets built, there will be new rewards, world quests, vendors, world bosses, challenges, and even portals. That means we get to choose which content we unlock and when we unlock it. It definitely sounds better than waiting 5 weeks, no matter what we do, to unlock what Blizzard decides to give to us. And that's not all. We'll also get Legion invasions across the Broken Isles, very much like the pre-patch event. When an invasion is active, the zone will shut down, all world quests will be unavailable, and new world quests will appear, which are all to do with the Legion invasion events. Legion forces will be everywhere, and the quests will range from clearing out the Legion presence to killing Legion lieutenants. When enough world quests have been cleared, you can strike down the Legion commander and stop the invasion. But wait, there's more. The Legion ships dominating the sky need to be dealt with as well, so after the commander has been slain, you can enter a 3-man scenario, that's right, scenarios are back, to take out the ships in the sky. Each zone's invasion will be slightly different, so make sure to check them all out. Also, don't fret about the world quests being disabled, as any invasion quests you complete will count towards that zone's emissary quest if it's available. Getting around to all these invasions is going to be a lot easier too, because we're getting flying in 7.2. The Broken Isles Pathfinder Part 2 will be implemented and will involve exploring the new Broken Shores areas, defending the Broken Isles areas from Legion invasions, completing the new Order Hall campaign questlines for breaching the Tomb of Sargeras, and getting reputation with a new Legionfall faction. After completing the achievement, you'll unlock flying for both your main and all of your alts, so it is account-wide, and hopefully it won't take too long after 7.2 launches. As if getting flying wasn't awesome enough, the Order Hall campaigns also reward class-specific flying mounts. All of these are flying-enabled, even the horses. We have a new tiger for monks, a fell horse for the warlocks, I'm not sure what this is, but it's cool and it's for hunters, a flying purple disc for mages, an awesome armoured proto-drake model for warriors, a holy steed for paladins, a glowing flying owl thing for priests, a massive raven or crow for the rogues, a freaking giant elemental for shamans, druids get a new owl flight form, demon hunters get an armoured fellbat, and finally Death Knights have a fell skeletal dragon. This is something we haven't seen in a long time, and I love they're bringing more and more class-specific content into the game. Now, obviously this is our big raid patch, so it has to come with the raid, the Tomb of Sargeras. It's going to be a 9 boss raid and we'll be descending deep into the Tomb of Sargeras. Our goal is to harness the Pillars of Creation that we spent so much time collecting to seal off the Legion's invasion of Azeroth. We'll decide later if that's a good idea or not, with all the theories flying around, but that's our current plan. The Tomb of Sargeras was once a Temple of Elune, so expect a lot of cool Night Elven architecture. There's a lot of different areas that we get to explore in the tomb, including the dark Cathedral section, which we'll come upon first, with the awesome Night Elven features which have succumbed to the Legion. We'll also explore some underground caverns where Queen Azshara has started to work her way in, so we'll be fighting her minions down there. There's also an Elven wing which was more or less entirely sealed off from the world after the Sundering for us to explore, and eventually we'll end up in the depths of the tomb where we'll find what horrors await at the end of the raid. There's a bunch of new boss models that were shown off in the presentation, including an Infernal Pit Lord, which is one of the first bosses, who will smash through the walls as his grand entrance, a new Legion monster, who is a melee take on the Jailer mobs, a Naga Brute, who blocks our way in the underground caverns, as well as a Naga Sea Witch, who controls a Kraken I'm sure we'll have to kill at some point. We also see the husk of the Avatar of Sargeras, not quite the force it once was, but still powerful enough to be a serious threat, and finally we know for sure that Kil'jaeden will be the last boss in the Tomb of Sargeras raid. So we have 2 more raids to chew through in Legion at the very least. Coming alongside the raid is a new dungeon called the Cathedral of Eternal Light. While the raid takes us down into the tomb's depths, the dungeon will involve climbing up the temple's spires. There's something special at the top of the dungeon that we'll be using the Aegis of Agramar for, so that's quite exciting. We know this will be a smaller dungeon, so not quite Karazhan, and will be available as a queuable heroic mode, mythic mode, and will be included in the Mythic Plus system. We also have a new PvP mode coming in the form of Brawls. If you've played Hearthstone or Overwatch, you should know where this is going. Basically, we get a weekly event where the rules will change, sometimes quite considerably. The examples we have for 7.2 include bringing back Southshore vs Taran Mill Battlegrounds to give us that nostalgia shot. Warsong's Capture the Flag will allow you to capture the flag even while yours is being stolen. Arenas becoming a battleground map, throwing 15 people against 15 people in those tiny arenas is going to be hectic, and a winter version of Arathi Basin, where the entire field is covered in snow, the bodies of water are completely frozen, and your visibility is severely reduced. A true winter blizzard. The last one we had a visual of was losing control of gravity in Eye of the Storm. There was one more mentioned, but not shown, where everybody was mounted on rams which allow you to butt enemies all over the place, like the world quests we have in Legion, but in the Eye of the Storm. So many people are going to be falling down holes. There are plans for a whole bunch of these brawls to be introduced to really mess up the rules of PvP and see what's fun and what sticks. A big content patch wouldn't be complete without new additions to the artifact system, and this is kind of crazy. There's going to be new traits for every artifact, 1 gold, 1 3-point trait and 1 utility trait, as well as a 4th point added for every existing minor trait. That's a crazy amount of traits added, and it's going to require a crazy amount of artifact power, so obviously we need even more artifact knowledge levels to keep up with the demand. And because this sounds super alt unfriendly, there's going to be a new catch-up mechanic for artifact knowledge added in as well. We're going to be able to outright buy artifact knowledge levels for Order Hall resources up to artifact knowledge level 10. There will be a bunch of new relics added as well, including relics that modify more than 1 trait at a time. We're going to end up with so many traits here, I don't see how our DPS is going to stay in check. We're going to explode with that Mad Deeps. To unlock most of these extra bits and pieces, there will be new artifact quest lines added, giving us even more to do. And if that isn't enough for new artifact content, every artifact will also gain a new appearance. This time around, the appearance will be unlocked through a solo skill challenge. These challenges were inspired by old class quests in previous expansions, such as the Benediction line for priests in vanilla or the Green Fire quest line for warlocks. These challenges are going to be difficult and entirely on you, meaning if you see someone with that new appearance, chances are they know what they're doing. Some of these look really cool. I can't wait to see how challenging they actually turn out. The very last thing we have coming in 7.2 is the dungeon update. With the new raids and dungeons coming out, the old dungeons in Heroic and Mythic mode will end up being obsolete. That's always what happens. Except there's a plan for that this time. Every previous dungeon will have its baseline Heroic and Mythic difficulty and rewards scaled up to the new dungeons. That means they'll be harder than they were before 7.2, but all of the items will scale in item level. That means Mythic Plus in these older dungeons is going to scale higher on top of that, and it's going to be the new standard. So all rewards from the dungeon will be the same if they're old dungeons or new dungeons. Karazhan will also be split into 2 dungeons for lower and upper Karazhan and have heroic modes enabled so you can queue into them. The 2 sections will also be available for the Mythic Plus Keystone system. Both Archway and Codestars are also getting heroic modes so you can queue into them as well. That means if you haven't completed any of these dungeons because you're just a heroic dungeon runner, that's your type of gameplay, you'll actually get 5 new dungeons come 7.2. There will also be newer fixes for Mythic Plus. The one we got to see was Bursting, which works like the blobs on Mythic Il'gynoth. Whenever you kill a trash mob, every party member will be afflicted with a really dangerous damage over time effect, so you'll have to be careful when you kill mobs. There's plans for even more Mythic Plus affixes too. And as with 7.1.5, we're going to get all the extra bits and bobs which I'm sure will be left to figure out. The timeline for 7.2 is a bit more vague, but we should expect the PTR for it to go up as soon as 7.1.5 is done on the PTR. Apparently PTR servers will always have something new and relevant going forward for us to test and help iron out bugs. There's also going to be 7.2.5 after for more medium-sized patch content. We also know that the Tomb of Sargeras is not the end for the Legion expansion. We're going to have to take the battle to them. It's confirmed, guys and gals, we're going to Argus. But that's it for this video and for the near future of Legion and what we can expect. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get back to you. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.